We know that many of the most powerful social movements in our nation's history first began on the streets and then made their way to lawmakers, the voting booth, and to the courts, which is why the implications from this week's landmark Supreme Court ruling on LGBTQ+ rights are so sweeping. Until now, fewer than half of the states in this country had laws explicitly banning workplace discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. In fact, a 2018 study finding that a quarter of the LGBTQ employees reported having experienced on-the-job discrimination in the past year. So now to break down this landmark legal ruling, we turn to ABC's senior Washington reporter, Devin Dwyer.
The decision was remarkably simple and sweeping. The Supreme Court declaring employment discrimination against LGBTQ Americans illegal under federal law.
It's so monumental that a court that's considered conservative stood by us and stood by our equality. It's very big.
Stunning advocates that Justice Neil Gorsuch, one of the court's most conservative members, appointed by President Trump, delivered the opinion. He called it an easy case, writing an employer who fires an individual merely for being gay or transgender defies the law. That law, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, bans discrimination on the basis of race, religion, national origin, and sex. Gorsuch saying sex plays a necessary and undisguisable role when someone is fired over sexual orientation or gender identity, adding it's exactly what Title VII forbids. Chief Justice John Roberts and the court's 4 liberal justices joined with Gorsuch, making it a 6-3 decision, the most significant for LGBTQ rights since same-sex marriage was legalized in 2015. It was the first time the Supreme Court affirmed the rights of transgender people. In dissent, Justice Samuel Alito accused the court of making law rather than interpreting it, writing that Congress in 1964 indisputably did not decide whether or not to outlaw discrimination against LGBTQ people. Justice Brett Kavanaugh saying he supports gay and lesbian Americans, but that Title VII does not mention the words sexual orientation.
When it comes to Chief Justice Roberts, but especially Justice Gorsuch, I think that their votes in this case are just evidence that presidents don't control the votes of their Supreme Court appointees. It's not totally clear what comes next, but that the court has, in general, has a very strong track record in protecting and promoting gay rights under the law.
What do we want? Equality! When do we want it? Now!
It was 2 gay men and 1 transgender woman who made history at the court, each raising claims of being fired for who they are.
I was devastated. Imagine having a job you loved and that you were great at and successful at, and having that taken away from you.
Gerald Bostock lost his job in 2013 as a child welfare services coordinator in Clayton County, Georgia. The county alleging unbecoming conduct, but Bostock saying he was let go for joining a gay softball league.
I didn't do anything wrong, and I didn't do anything differently from the time before I had joined the softball league to the time after I joined.
In New York, skydiving instructor Donald Zarda alleged discrimination too, fired in 2010 after a customer complained that Zarda revealed during a jump that he was gay. The company says it dumped Zarda for sharing inappropriate personal information, but Zarda's sister, now pursuing the case after her brother's death in 2014, says his sexual orientation was the issue.
Don was so devastated when he was fired. He wanted to make sure that other people didn't suffer the same discrimination.
The justice is also deciding the case of Amy Stevens, a transgender funeral director in Detroit, fired after telling her employer that she was transitioning. Her boss said she violated the dress code, even though she dressed professionally as a woman. I spoke to Stevens late last year.
It made me mad because here I put the time in. Done my job and did it very well, and now all of a sudden they don't need me anymore.
Must have been devastating.
It was, but it got me mad enough to do something about it.
Stevens passed away last month before the court could rule on her case. Now an inspiration to many as the fight for equality in the workplace goes on.
What's your message to Americans who don't understand what it means to be transgender and may struggle with employees like yourself in their own workplaces?
Make it a point to get to know a trans person, because then you find out that we're not any different than anybody else.
Thank thanks to Devin for that report, and we'll be hearing more from him a little bit later. But right now, we're joined by key players in that extraordinary ruling, which consists of 3 separate cases. And of the 3 main plaintiffs, only one lived to see the court's decision. Plaintiff Gerald Bostock was fired back in 2013 after his employer found out that he was on a gay softball league. And we're joined by Melissa Zarda, sister of the late plaintiff Donald Zarda. He was a skydiving instructor fired 10 years ago after a customer complained that Zarda revealed he was gay. And William Moore, the former partner of Mr. Zarda. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I want to say congratulations at the top on the ruling. But Gerald, I want to start with you. I read that you were on a work conference call when you got the news.
That's correct. And that's actually been pretty much how my Mondays have looked every week for the last couple of months. Because I am a healthcare professional and I work at a local hospital here in Atlanta, I have morning rounds and morning report and also treatment teams. And because of the current pandemic, we've sort of limited the number of face-to-face meetings at the hospital. So I call in, and this particular Monday yesterday, I'm on the phone with work, and we have on our television in our den, we had pulled up the SCOTUS blog. And as we were watching shortly after 10 o'clock, someone posted that they were about to announce the opinion on Bostock versus Clayton County. And I truly think my heart stopped for a moment, but I quickly got off of the work call. I excused myself, and I was with my partner, and we began to watch. And oddly enough, we started seeing some crazy things on the screen from the SCOTUS blog, and apparently the system was starting to crash. I was told that the opinion is 172 pages, and finally someone was able to post only a portion, the top portion of the first page. And as soon as I read the words, the few words that were visible, my partner and I, we looked at each other and we were like, oh my gosh, we did this. So it was an absolutely amazing experience.
It was very much not expected to go down in this way. What was give us a sense of the emotions you were going through.
I was elated, and my heart is just full of joy and also gratitude. You know, I'm very thankful to the justices for making the right decision here and making it across the board. And I'm grateful to my great legal team at Buckley Bill here in Atlanta, my wonderful family and my strong circle of friends, and all of the great organizations that have been standing there with us, with all of us, including the Zarda family and Amy Stevens' family. Organizations like the ACLU, Human Rights Campaign, and for me specifically here in Georgia, Georgia Equality.
And on top of it all, you are a healthcare hero, so we thank you all for your efforts. Melissa, I heard you also thanking Gerald as we were setting up communications. It must be bittersweet for you, though, on this day because your brother isn't here to see this historic win. But tell me about why it's so important for you to continue this fight in his memory and what it's like to get to that moment of reading the decision.
This was so incredibly important because, you know, this started out being about Don, and what I quickly realized when people started telling me their stories was that so many people suffer workplace discrimination that I really was ignorant of this problem. I was unaware, and so I realized how big this problem was, and I realized that across the country, this is going to impact millions of people who can safely be themselves at work. And that is huge. That is amazing. That is more than Don could have ever wanted. So we miss Don so much. We wish he was here to see it, but we know that he's looking down and that he is so happy with this ruling.
You're a classic ally to the cause. Thank you. William, I want to turn to you. This must be extremely emotional for you. Reflect for a minute, if you would, on what this means for Donald's lasting legacy for this landmark ruling for equal rights. And also, I read a letter you wrote in the Dallas Morning News, I think, where you talked about your own workplace discrimination.
Yeah, so this has got I would say, three important parts to me. The first part, of course, is that Don suffered so much from this loss, it completely spiraled him into a downward circle that I think eventually led to his death. So to leave a legacy such as this, and for him to have died and to have never been able to see this, it is sad. I'm very excited for his legacy and for the outcome of this case. Yes, I was fired in 2000 for having a photo on my desk. I was awarded Employee of the Month by a company in Dallas called Advocare. They're out of business now. And they were owned by a man that had strong Christian values, is what the HR person told me, and that my services were no longer needed. And my boss eventually told me that it was out of her hands and that I had been terminated because of my sexuality. And I contacted a couple of attorneys. This was in 2000. They said, you have no chance whatsoever of any of this going to court, so you might as well just save your money. And I did. But the third important part for this is for all the young LGBTQ family, the teenagers, the high school students, the college students that are going to be applying for jobs, the people who currently have jobs, all the millions of people out there that can now be themselves and they can come out safely at their jobs and they can express themselves and they can stop changing their pronouns. There's so many people that are affected by these two decisions. My best friend is transgendered and she doesn't have to worry about this in the workplace any longer. I have a good friend in the police force that doesn't have to worry about this any longer. So it has affected and will affect my close family and chosen family and friends as well.
Gerald, I want you to pick up on that. Tell us about how this is reverberating across the country in your view, but also it's been a long road for you. It's been 7 years since you lost your job. You're counseling adults now, but take us back to that moment you were fired from another job that you loved, like Donald's job of being a skydiving instructor he loved. Talk about the personal toll that it took on you, both personally and professionally.
Well, imagine having the job that you loved, your dream job, and a job that you were good at. And then after deciding to join a gay recreational softball league, having that taken away from you, it was devastating. I lost my source of income. I lost my health insurance at a time I was still battling and recovering from prostate cancer. I ended up having to sell my home in the Clayton County community. So it impacted every aspect of my life. But I tell you, I have no regrets. I do not regret joining the gay softball league. I've made so many new friends and relationships because of that. And knowing that I did nothing wrong and did not deserve to lose my job,
Gerald, you've
been
mentioned,
a long journey.
Yeah, you've mentioned that this fight has become so much bigger than just you fighting for your job. Tell us what this means, you know, as William said, to the young community, to the folks out there looking at the Supreme Court decision as a beacon. Well, I think the message that the justices gave us yesterday morning was a very clear message about equality. And I think this is laying the groundwork for what still needs to happen in this country. You know, in this time of uncertainty and the civil unrest that's been going on, I'm hopeful that this victory that we're all sharing in, that it spreads a little sunshine on the dark days that we've had, not only just the last few days, but, you know, the last 3 weeks or so. And my message is there is hope. The civil unrest certainly underscores the fact that there is more work to do. There is no room for discrimination or racism in this world today. And my hope is that everyone sees that. And again, everyone shares in this victory. Well, I can't thank you all enough for joining us and sharing your stories. Clearly, the future is fully inclusive. I want to thank you for your time and for your insights. Absolutely. Our pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.